You ever get a certified letter that feels like a rattlesnake in the mailbox? Yeah, that was me mid-morning, coffee cooling on the porch, and this county courier slows down my gravel drive like he's delivering bad news on purpose. Clutching a clipboard and a white envelope that said Cedar Ridge Heights Homeowners Association on the return, I opened it and read, "Remove the lock gate within 10 days. And I laughed out loud because the idea that some committee could tell me what to do on my own road was the funniest thing I'd heard all week until it wasn't. Let me back up a sec. I live out here on 6 acres, a half-mile of dirt that winds down to State Highway 12, trees leaning over like old friends. The kind of place where your biggest neighbors are elk and weather. I built a gate with my own hands, set steel posts in concrete. Wired a plate reader, so I wouldn't get people cutting across my land for shortcuts. And I have the deed, the easement language, and county records stacked in a folder that would make a librarian cry. Private road, no right-of-way for outsiders without my written consent. Simple as that. Or so I thought. 3 days after the letter, while I was tightening a fence wire by the north pasture, my phone pinged, motion at the gate. On the live feed, 2 SUVs sat nose to tail outside the bars. A woman in a cream parka, helmet hair somehow escaping even in the wind, was pacing, lecturing a UPS driver like he owed her moral clarity. "We should just cut the hinges, that thing doesn't belong here," she said, smiling the way people smile when they mean trouble. A lanky guy in a Cedar Ridge HOA vest nodded. "Hire a crew, it'll be down in an hour." They laughed about it, casual, confident, like they'd already divided up the spoils. I saved the clip, backed it up to a drive in my safe, called my attorney Eric before I finished my coffee. Old instincts die slow, especially when you used to track people who didn't want to be found. We sent a crisp reply, deed attached, easement language highlighted, certified mail and email both, polite but firm. Any further attempt would be considered trespass. That should have been the end of it, but of course it wasn't. 2 weeks later, at 2 a.m., my cameras pinged. Static, then gone. The main camera's power cable cleanly severed, a heavy chain tossed over the sensor arm. The gate motor groaned against it. Tire tracks led back toward Cedar Ridge. The tread pattern was sharp enough to read like a fingerprint. I called Deputy Markham, one of the few people in the county who doesn't take HOA drama and shrug. He came out, crouched, inspected the cut cable, and said, "Bolt cutters, utility shears. Whoever did this knew what they were doing." That phrase lodged in my bones like a splinter. So I hardened the place, new solar cameras up on poles, independent batteries, LTE uplinks so cutting wires wouldn't blind me anymore. I buried a trail cam in the tree line 30 yards back. Redundancy isn't paranoia, it's strategy. 3 nights later, the trail cam caught headlights and a man with a DSLR panning the gate. And the next morning my neighbor sent a screenshot. Karen Winslow, Cedar Ridge HOA president, posted in the community group. "Our rightful access to Highway 12 has been blocked by an illegal gate. We'll restore access by any means necessary." Her followers nodded like a jury ready to convict. This was a plan, not a misunderstanding. The first shot had been the letter, the cut cable was recon, the post was propaganda. They were building a narrative. I'm a selfish obstructionist, denying safety to the town, hoarding a historic right-of-way. And when the mob starts chanting, people believe the chant. People not only talk themselves into righteousness, they organize it. The harassment shifted into a slow drip of provocations that were carefully calibrated to bait me into reacting. Late deliveries blocked by parked trucks, compliance rumors pushed to the county, whispers about emergency access. That last one made my blood run cold. Dragging first responders into this would be playing with fire. So I went straight to the firehouse, handed the captain keys to a lockbox and the keypad code, got letters from EMS confirming no obstruction, and posted those letters online, truth as a shield. Eric called it gold, and hummed like a man who smells victory. The escalation that should have been improbable happened one crisp Saturday. A crew of 4 in neon vests clustered around my gate, a battery, powered angle grinder sparked against the hinge, and at the center of the circus was Karen, folder under her arm, barking orders like a foreman. I tore down the drive on my ATV, GoPro on my chest, engine howling. The grinder operator froze, tools in hand. I told them to step back, they didn't. Deputy Markham rolled up like timing had been scripted, took in the grinder marks, the tools, the scoped out stance of the crew, and told them to pack it up. "If you return with tools and no court order, you'll be cited," he said. Karen gathered her papers and retreated, cheeks tight as a raid balloon. They tried paperwork next. A complaint arrived in Eric's inbox, an alleged 1978 easement map with a county seal, signatures, the whole thing looking like it had been dug out of a courthouse time capsule. The problem was small but fatal. It was a fake, wrong clerk name, wrong ink shade, modern fonts where typewriter impressions should be. We called in Collins, a licensed surveyor, and Jacobs, a county records historian. Collins traced coordinates. Jacobs pointed at seals and laughed that they'd used a 1990s blue that didn't exist in '78. Someone had doctored an easement to run right through my driveway. Amateur forgery. But dangerous in intent. Counterpunch time. Eric filed a motion to dismiss their claim and a counterclaim for trespass, attempted destruction of property, and fraud. We poured in affidavit after affidavit, plowed drivers who'd never needed my gate. The county clerk from 1978 confirming she'd never signed such a map, Deputy Markham's report on the sabotage, camera stills of the grinder, the SUV that idled like a scouting party. We put everything into black binders tabbed like a spine, the kind of thing you could drop on a table and make a room go quiet. But the twist, the one you don't always get in these small-town dramas, came from inside the enemy camp. Stan, a taciturn feed store regular, heard two HOA members joking about having a real surprise for me, and he told me. An anonymous HOA board member, fed up with Karen's unilateral tactics, slipped Diane's team an email chain. We can't legally force him in, but if we raise enough zoning complaints, he might fold. Start with the gate. That line exposed that this wasn't about the road or safety. It was a coordinated siege to break me down and claim my land by narrative and pressure. Once you see the chessboard, you change your play. We took it to court, and the hearing got ugly the way truth makes liars sweat. Collins and Jacobs dismantled the forged easement. The actual 1978 clerk swore under oath she'd never seen the document. Deputy Markham testified about the attempted cut and the night protest with flares. Yes, they showed up with flares, and yes. Karen led a crowd shouting into a bullhorn, while someone tried to tamper with the lock. There were arrests that night, trespass and contempt of court, and the footage was grainy, orange and terrible and perfect evidence. When the judge read the ruling, the room held its breath like you do before thunder. The HOA's complaint was dismissed with prejudice, their forged map declared fraudulent, and the court found in my favor on trespass and attempted destruction. The judge slapped a temporary order prohibiting any HOA approaches within 50 feet of my gate, pending the case, an injunction like a visible breath of relief across my property. Eric grinned like someone who'd just dunked a three-pointer. Deputy Markham clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You kept your cool, that's how you win." There was fallout. The HOA's board splintered, a few members quietly resigned, and the community's murmur shifted from righteous to skeptical. But the thing that settled in was quieter, a sense that law still mattered, that documentation and good neighbors and following the right steps could beat folks with a loud voice and a folder full of lies. I put up extra cameras, winterized the gate motor, bolted a court order to the post in a laminated sleeve so any curious sheriff or journalist could read it as they drove by. And then came the day the judge awarded damages. Legal fees covered, repairs paid, punitive damages tacked on to make the point that forging a record and ordering a mob to your neighbor's gate carries consequences. It wasn't vindictive, it was corrective, a reminder that private property rights and public process aren't optional, even when someone's righteous rant looks convincing on a community page. I tell this story because it's easy to think small towns are immune to grand schemes, and it's easy to think a gate is just a gate. But people with fragile power notice anything that doesn't fit their script, and some of them will try to rewrite reality to make it so. You can meet that with anger and a viral post, or you can meet it with documentation, patience, and the right people in your corner. I chose the latter because I wanted the road to stay mine without turning my life into a non-stop firefight. So here's the picture that sticks with me. A snowy night, flares spitting orange smoke across the white, a dozen people shouting, and then deputy lights cutting through it like a blade. Cameras rolling, evidence stacking up like the kind of proof that makes lies melt. The gate is back on its hinges, the lockbox open to the fire chief, and the road once again private by court order. My binders sit on a shelf now, the tabs a little dusty, but their work finished. That feeling is rare and clean. Now I want to throw this at you. Where is the line between community oversight and outright abuse of power? When does protecting the neighborhood become a campaign to take something that isn't yours? If you were in my boots, Would you shut up and let the narrative pass for peace, or would you fight to keep your property and your truth? Tell me your stories. If you faced an overreaching committee, a forged paper, or a noisy neighbor with influence, drop it in the comments, because folks need to hear that standing still isn't the only option, and sometimes the right fight is the quiet, documented one.